Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good day, good night, wherever you're watching from. This is the series of People of the World. And today I have a very special guest speaker, and I'm really, really looking forward to learning more. The intent of our show, right, People of the World, is to get speakers from all over the world and learn, mainly focusing on personal growth, on how we can, learn about tools, techniques, perspective, share thoughts, experience, wherein we can bring out the best in ourselves. So today, look at this. I have this book, To Break Our Bounds, and we have the author, Dr. Shelley Plumb, who will be joining us, and we'll be talking about the book. So, feel free to ask questions. Let's make the session interactive. With that, I'm going to bring up Dr. Shelley Plumb.
Hello. How are you?
I am so happy to see you today. I love your book. I still have to, do a deep dive. I just got it. And when I started reading, it resonated with me so much on, my own personal growth. And I just cannot wait to talk about the details.
Oh,
So before we go into that, I know I spoke a little bit and I said that you're the author. I also know that you are a video coach and you are a doctor.
yes. Yes. There's a whole story behind all of that too. It's interesting.
Yeah. So tell us more about yourself.
Well, I actually, believe it or not, I grew up in the wonderful land of Washington State. So I grew up, with the trees and all of that. And, at an early age, I was in the communication world, meaning in college, I was in communications with the video production, writing promos for the television station. But somehow, people were talking to my ear. I ended up actually going into medicine. Podiatry. I'm a podiatrist actually, and I did my surgical training in Philadelphia, and I landed in Florida, and that's where I'm at right now. And it's interesting because with medicine, it's very much, for me anyway, it was very much left brain, meaning very analytical, very logical, that type of thing. And there's a part of me that is that. But through the years, as I grew older, I realized that something was really, really missing in my life. And there was resistance in my heart. And there was a deep, dark moment in my life where I was going through a divorce. I had 3 children under the age of 5 years old. I hit rock bottom. And it was a really eye-opening experience. And I realized that the last time I was really, truly happy is when I was pursuing my passion, and that was in the video production studio. So now I've decreased and retired from my medicine. I'm now a full-time producer at Plum Talk Productions and absolutely loving it. I mean, there is not a day that is exciting and full of adventure, for sure.
Absolutely. First of all, congratulations in aligning yourself to what you like and love, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that is one of the key, right? When we look at ourselves and we reflect and see why we are not happy. Mm-hmm. And just aligning ourselves to, okay, what makes us happy? And I'm so proud to hear that, you actually did it.
Oh my goodness. And it was, can I share with you, it was the scariest thing in my life. And
I bet.
And I think too, I mean, looking back, there were signs that I needed to do this sooner than when I did.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, I remember one day, the day that I decided I was going to start making the change. You know what I was looking at? I was looking at my toddler that was running around, one that was crawling, and one that was in his crib. And I'm thinking, you know what? What would I tell them to do? If they were in my position, what would I want for my children? I should want nothing less for myself, right?
Absolutely. How old are they now?
They are, one is almost 18. He'll be 18 this month, actually. And I have one that's 16 and one 15. So they're right in a
Oh,
row. Yes.
15, 16, 18. Wow, awesome.
Right.
You look awesome to be a super mom.
Oh, you're so sweet. You're so sweet. I have one graduating, which is just incredible. I'm so proud of him. So proud.
Yeah, cool. All right. So I know that, we want to ask you a lot of questions, which we resonate with what you have written. But before that, what I want to do is just so that you'd also learn about a new place, I want to share a quick video clipping about my place. Just so that you understand the context of the viewer, our viewer. I am right now located, as we spoke, I'm in Rockville, Maryland, but I am originally from India, from a beautiful place called Manipur. It's in the northeastern part of India.
Wow.
Yeah, so let me pull up a video.
I would love to see it.
Yeah, let's do that. All right.
Did manage to make it to Ukhrul that night. It was my day 2 in Manipur, and that morning I woke up to a view like this. Located at an altitude of around 5,400 feet above the sea level, Ukhrul is a land of beautiful mountains. The place is mostly covered with clouds throughout the year, but I was lucky enough to be there on a sunny day. I am in Manipur right now, and today I am at this place called.
All right. Yeah, so I thought I'll give you a glimpse of it, and thank you to Hopping Bug for uploading that video. It's beautiful, just a reflection of one of the place in Manipur. And I just wanted you to, see like how different it is, right, to some of the views you might have come across.
I love that. First of all, the scenery was just
Yeah.
breathtaking, but was particularly striking in that video for me was the smiles and the compassion and the love that you got from the children and even the adults that were in it. I mean, that was just extraordinary.
Yeah, so that's where I grew up, not in Ukhrul, but in Manipur. Ukhrul is one of the place, but it's like, I grew up when you just walk out of the house or go for a 5 minutes drive, you would see the hills, the fields, and, so that's the background of where I grew from.
Oh, I love
And
it.
yeah, and I want to share, one more clipping just to set the intent and background of today's show. This is a picture of me and my father. My father has passed away, and 4 years ago. And in fact, this month it's the death anniversary for my father. And to read your book and kind of reflect on, how I started my personal growth journey and how my father's death had given me the gift, to start that journey, because I hit rock bottom during that phase. So I just wanted to set that intent and also set the background, for you and me to have a very awesome conversation with learnings in today's session.
Okay.
So here, let me just read it out. To share my story of personal growth, I have to start with my father. He gave us the gift of education and gender equality. At every point, he encouraged and empowered me to follow my dreams. I felt his true love and support. I was truly inspired by his belief in education from a young age. His early morning chores was farming at Oinam village in Manipur. After that, he would wipe his muddy little feet with ash and hay and cold water, run 17 kilometers to be on time for his school in Nambol. He used to study under the street lamp in cold winter nights when the lamps ran out in his home. I am who I am because of him. He was my biggest inspiration. That was the picture taken on one of the morning after he started having dementia. Morning was the sharpest time, those days where we would sit and talk. Even then, he remembered everything about his passion and push to be educated, self-sufficient, independent. He's gone now, but lives in my heart as my continuous source of love and inspiration. Bababu Kurumzari. So Baba is what I used to call him. And then when he passed away, this is a picture of, one of the ritual. This is me making a garland of him, in preparation for one of the ritual. So when he passed away, that was truly the moment where I was engulfed in grief, but not only grief, but many factor, right? Like the non-inclusiveness of women in ritual, the insignificance of women in rituals, because it's many of the rituals, what I have noticed, was mainly like done by the sons or by the male. So it made me question about, wow, my father believed in equality, gender equality, gave me the gift of education even with that background. So that was one factor. And then also I felt people judging in many ways. So for example, there was one time wherein I shared about my father's death in Facebook. And my intent was, because we have the ritual and offering flower is one of the very unique traditional ritual where, it's a time for people who knew the person who has passed away to say goodbye, right? So it is very important for people who knew him to be there. So that was the intent.
Right.
And I'm getting feedback as though, I am putting that for publicity, which, made me question about the people who were surrounding me, right? Like, a lot of judgment in that time of grief. But of course, I did what I had to do, and my intent was clear. And I was so thankful and grateful that, one friend of my dad, whom I did not know at all, saw the information, came to our house, and we got connected. Such awesome moment.
Right. Wow.
So the reason I brought up this, this topic before we start our conversation is you started your book, right, with your grandmother's passing away and how that has really impacted you. And you spoke about negativity, right? Let me read this. One drop of negativity on a fragile psyche leads to imbalance and, in many cases, irreparable damage, right? And it's about, like, as your book says, right? Do you choose to break down or bounce back, right?
Yes.
At that moment, I felt I was broken in many aspects, right? Like questioning my identity, questioning the belief, questioning people around me, and dealing with that negativity. And I bounced back. And I would love for you to share, right, like about what you have written over here a little bit and elaborate with us today.
Well, thank you. And thank you, first of all, for sharing your story, because I know, and that was part of the motivation behind writing the book, is that, you know what, if I'm going through this, then other people probably are too. And, like you went through, and I'm getting chills because I really resonate with what you're saying.
Yeah.
I remember at one point in my life, I had my young baby in my arms, and I was sitting back going, my life is so completely out of balance. I mean, I was spiraling down into oblivion, and, looking at my child and then looking at myself in the mirror, I'm like, you know what? I have two choices, right? I have two choices. I could either let this situation defeat me, and continue to spiral down and out of control, or I can pick myself up, I can dust myself off, and I can do something about it. And, looking down at my baby, looking at myself in the mirror, looking at my husband at the time, I was like, you know what? There is no question. I need to bounce. I need to bounce. So the next thing is, how do you do that? And that is actually where the book came into play. I started at that point in my life. I took a pen, I took a piece of paper, and I just started writing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so important to keep sharing, because I see that sometimes when you are broken, you are so broken that you feel that you cannot climb up. And I think, where I resonated so much with you when I read your book is, no, you don't have to break down.
No.
There are tools, there are techniques, there are ways you can bounce back.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Right.
All right. So you spoke about nature, right? Nature is one of the tools, and I have used that, and I would love for you to elaborate on that.
Nature, and that is one thing for viewers out there. The book is really parallels my grandmother, her passing, my mother's passing when I was younger, and my grandmother always she called the country that she lived in God's country, because she really felt in her heart that nature had the answers. Nature teaches us lessons in many, many respects. And I did not fully realize the extent of that until after she had passed, unfortunately. And when I was putting that pen to paper and I was reflecting on her words, which are in the book, I realized how many lessons that nature had given me. And now I pride myself in getting out into nature every single day. I've been to Africa to help the children. I have been to, the Appalachian Trail to hike. And I do that for one reason only, is to learn. I want to know what nature has to teach me about my current life and where I'm going in the future. So that it's nature is a very strong part of my life.
Yeah, definitely. And is that why you chose the
The
book, the cover? Yeah, I wanted to ask
there
you,
is a
because when I
story
saw this,
behind.
I'm like, wow, this looks like so cool.
There is a story behind that, because my publisher actually came up with 3 covers, and I'd always had a vision of what my cover would be like, and
Yeah.
I kind of had communicated with that, and they came back with 3 covers, and I'm looking at it, and they were very abstract and everything. I'm like, no, it has to reflect nature. It has to reflect, where my grandmother actually lived, which is where the book takes place. So what we did is we actually went to a park, and we shot that. That's a photo of mine, and that's me right next to the tree.
Oh my God, I didn't realize that.
Yes. Isn't that cool?
This is so cool. Oh wow!
I'm so
Thank you
glad you like
I'm
that.
so
Thank
glad
you
I
for bringing
asked.
that
I'm
up.
so glad I asked that question.
Right. Yeah.
Cool.
So I you know what, it's and I'm so glad that we chose that, because when I look at that book, I feel love, I feel warmth, I feel peace, especially after going through all the things that you've read about in the book. That cover really brings it all home.
Yeah. And I think, like, a lot of us, right, we think that, oh, getting self-help is expensive, or it is far out of our reach. And I just wanted to start with nature, because nature is there with you wherever you are watching us from, right? It could be just like taking a walk, it could be just doing gardening, it could be like spending time. And really, like, gardening is one of the things which can really like keep you grounded and be in touch. And for me, like, when I was going through that phase, I started running, and I remember running in trails, and just that fresh air, the woods, and it changed me.
Right.
So
You know what? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So I just wanted to emphasize that I absolutely agree 100% with you on, on nature and how it can help us heal and how it can help us to bounce back.
Absolutely. There was, I hiked a portion of the Appalachian Trail in the USA a few years ago, and there was a situation where my hiking partner and I were on the trail, and it was incredibly hot. It was really, really hot. And we had brought enough water with us, but there were streams, and we would fill up and cleanse our water, that type of thing. But the streams had actually dried up. So there was a point where me in particular, I think her as well, is I started getting dizzy. I started, oh my God. And there was a point where I'll share with you, I didn't think that I would personally was going to be able to go on. My legs were heavy. I couldn't do anything. And we went around the corner and went up, and all of a sudden, I kid you not, there were hundreds of butterflies. These butterflies were just flitting around. They were beautiful. And that to me was the motivation I needed. It was a sign that I needed to go. I needed to do this. I can indeed do this. It flipped the switch for me. And so, I mean, that's just one example of how nature has helped me. It gives you signs. It gives you signs through your life.
Yeah, absolutely. How many days did you go for the trail?
We were on the trail for 2 days.
Wow,
We slept,
that's good.
and yeah, it was interesting. It was
Yeah.
We had a run-in with a mountain lion too. So story.
Oh, really? Yeah, I mean, I haven't done like the night, like going through 1, 2 days. I have done only day trails. I'm not there yet, but yeah, I will get to that phase.
Well, maybe one day you and I will do it together.
Yeah, there you go. Visualization. I would love that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going through your book because I know I have a lot of things I wanted to ask you. Okay, I love this. Breaking versus taking a break. Let's talk about that.
Okay. All right. When I wrote that, I was visualizing ourselves when we get to that deep, dark moment in our life, and we've all been there or are going to be there at some point. And you know what? We are faced with that choice. On the one hand, it's almost like a scale, right? A scale that might be out of balance. And if we're faced with that deep, dark moment, we are going to have the ultimate choice. The ultimate choice is this, is number one is to break, to let yourself, fall apart, basically. The second choice is to take a break. And what I mean by that is I have spent my life working overtime. I mean, overworking myself. And I know a lot of viewers out there probably can relate to that. And I felt guilty actually taking a break because I felt like I had to do this incessant activity, keep going, keep going, keep going. But sometimes taking a break is what we need to heal. And that's where I'm going with that. Is if you're in that deep, dark moment in your life, and I have been there, what I had to realize is that, first of all, to keep myself from breaking, I need to take a break, get out into nature, do my walk, look at the sun, and take that ultimate break so I can fill my cup. And only then can I bounce to the heavens. So that's where that saying came from.
Absolutely. Oh my God. You say fill my cup. I always use the analogy of a cup, like, with my participants of Finding Yourself, where we meet together.
All
I'm
right.
like, okay, let's review your cup. What do we have in the cup, right?
Yes. Yes. And you know what? And therein is a really good point, is periodically, even through the day, we have to be, that metaphorical cup has to be in front of us, and we need to pay attention to it. So
Right.
where is it at?
Right.
Because, when you feel, and my thing now is because you become in tune with your body, right? And when you feel that resistance in your heart, that is a cue for me. When I feel that resistance, something is just not right, I look at my cup. And most times, 9 times out of 10, that cup is dangerously low, and I have to do something to fill it.
Yeah. And the way I do the analogy, I think for you, you are looking at like, okay, what is in the cup and what is the level of your positivity or, So
Right.
for me, I'm like, okay, what is in my cup? Okay, negative, negative, positive, positive. Okay, throw away the negative so that I can put the positive and then kind of, because it's like finite, right? The cup is finite. And if it
Right.
is all filled with negative, there is no space for positive things to come.
True.
So just take out all the negative, create the space, identify what you're aligned to, what you love, right? And then
Right.
move towards that.
I love that, because
Yeah.
what you're saying really resonates with the universal law of nature, right?
Yeah.
Is if our hearts, for example, are filled with negativity and conflict and strife and imbalance, there's only so much room in our heart, right?
Right.
When there's no room for the positive. So we have to physically, and I talk about that in the book, right? Where we have to take the negative
Yeah.
and give ourselves permission to let it go so that we can invite more positive, productive things into our heart.
Absolutely. And I think many of our listeners, right, have expressed that, in letting go of the negative, or, but if you want to grow, I want you to address that a little bit. A lot of people are stuck on, okay, how can I grow if the immediate people in my circle are so negative and not nurturing? And it's that, like, people get stuck in that, like, oh, how can I, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
Yeah, if you can address that a bit.
You know what, it's very interesting with that. And I think what you're asking, I mean, is how can we grow if who we're surrounded with are not helping us to get to that point? And that is actually an interesting story that a very, very dear friend taught me a huge lesson with. And he's a shaman, and he taught me that in life, when you're a radiant light like you are, there are people around you that are going to, he call it courting, where they plug into you. They want to plug in, and what that does is it drains your beautiful energy, basically. And he said that there is nothing wrong, and this is where I was letting all the negative energy. I didn't want to disappoint anybody. I didn't want to say no to anybody. So I just kept letting them court me, right?
Yeah.
My energy was draining and I was going nowhere. I was spiraling down out of control. He told me, Shelley, listen, he says, there is nothing wrong with disconnecting their cord and distancing yourself from them. There's no animosity, there's no judgment. You wish them well, but you distance yourself from that. And that is a very hard lesson that I had to learn. And there was a lot of people that I had to not eliminate them from my life, but set very, very important boundaries. And up until, I wrote the book, that was a very difficult thing for me. Number one is to set boundaries. Number two is to say no to people who were, I call it people who were not constructive. They were destructive. So you have to identify that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, when you gave that example about people coding to you and extracting your energy, but you're not getting anything back, so you're drained.
Yes.
And so it is okay for us to cut that cord. I mean, you don't have to say that, hey, you are out of my life, right? You just set that boundary. If you are not at the number one in that person's life, and you have put that person to be number one, clearly there is, even when you see logically in math, it's not like balanced, right?
Right.
So I think one of the first struggle, or one of the first challenge when people start the personal journey, is, how do I say no, right? Because I have been with them, and how can I create my boundary? And for me also, that was difficult.
Yes.
But I did it. Like, I went through this phase wherein I just was isolated and I stopped calling everybody. It was really dark.
Oh, wow.
And it was an interesting experiment because it made me realize on who called me back to check back on me.
Oh, right.
You know?
Yes. Yeah. Well, you realize who is supportive in your life, and
Right,
who has your best interest at heart, who truly has your best interest at heart, because those people who have your best interest at heart are going to be the ones that are going to call and check on you,
right.
because they truly believe in you. They believe in what you stand for, and they don't want anything in return. And it was interesting because when I got to that point in my life and I was started setting boundaries, there were some that I said no to, who said, oh, who said, you know what, then I'm out of here. And I didn't hear from them again. And then
Yeah,
there was another subsection of people where I set the boundary, I said no, and they looked at me and they're like, you know what, I get it. I
yeah,
understand. I respect that. And I'm here for you.
yeah,
And those are the people. And in the book, I talk about the infamous bubble, right?
yeah,
Those are the people that stay inside, stay close to you in your bubble. So
yeah,
it's very cool.
yeah. So it's so important to know who you want, who are the people who should be in your bubble,
Right. Yes.
right?
Right.
So
Absolutely.
So
Yes.
I think there are different ways where people realize that, but for me, it was very interesting because, like you said, right, like there were some people. I mean, obviously, everybody has different way to express and reach out. It doesn't have to be a call; it can be a note. But you feel, right? We feel the energy of the person that, hey, the person is genuinely checking up on you, and on your well-being. And like you said, right, like, yeah, when you create the boundary, and if the other person truly values you, the person would continue, and you have that
Mhm.
conversation and you're like, okay, cool, right, we are good
Yes.
now, you have
Right.
that boundary. Or then the other category where you said is like, the other person don't care. So yeah, that's fine. Then like, it's absolutely fine to cut the cord, take the person out of your boundary, and create the space to fill in with other things which you can do to uplift your life.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And can I share with you too? I mean, that
Yeah,
concept
yeah,
not only helped me with my personal boundaries, but it also helped me to respect other people's personal
yes,
boundaries as well, if that makes any sense.
yes,
And now I'm very aware, and you start becoming a little more intuitive. When somebody maybe says a sharp word to you, now instead of taking
yeah,
offense, and now I look at them and I wonder what they're going through.
yeah,
And instead of saying, oh, instead you say, you know what, are you okay? What's going on?
right.
So that has definitely enriched my life.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think like when we go through the personal growth journey, right, first it is about us elevating in terms of, okay, looking at our cup, looking at our ball, whatever analogy you use.
Yes.
But I think you have a great point, right? It's also about seeing in us what, like, because I could be like very reactive and I could have done the same thing other people have done, right? So
Yes.
I can see the fault, or I can react better. Like in your example, what you're saying is, if somebody has said something mean to you, ideally in my previous self, you might be like,
Mhm.
oh, whatever, and you might walk out. But now that you have an enriched mind, you're thinking like, oh, what is the person going through? Maybe it's not about me, right?
Right.
Sometimes it's really not about me,
Yeah. And
right?
what I'm finding is 9 times out of 10, it's not
Yeah,
about me.
right.
Right.
Maybe they are not having a bad day, or whatever be the case. So yeah, that's absolutely cool.
Yeah, yeah, it's so true. And you know what? It's interesting, the writing the book and reflecting on the book and speaking to beautiful people like you. It's just, you know what? We want to be the change that we want to see in the world. So if we want a world that's full of peace and love and light and balance, resilience, all of that, then we need to take strides ourselves in our own heart to be that.
Right, absolutely. So you also mentioned about like, which I also noted here, the art of saying no, which we find it so difficult.
Yes, yes. Oh my goodness, that is
Yeah,
so true. And I will be 100% honest with you and all the viewers that are out there. That is a continual
yeah,
struggle for me. I am much better having written the book and reflecting on my grandmother's words and all of that. But there is that I don't know if it's a need or if it's a desire or if it's something that's ingrained in your genetics, but that need to please people, to make them happy, to see that smile on their face. And what I've had to come to terms with is sometimes the best way to help someone is to not help them. Is to back away and sometimes in many respects let them navigate it themselves.
yeah, yeah. So do you have any instance, where you said no, which was difficult for you, but you did it?
That's an interesting. I'm a producer now, as you know, and
Yeah,
there has been times where I've had to say no, and it was difficult to do at the time, but it really helped me. And there was one client in particular that I was helping, and he kept wanting more and he wanted more and he wanted more, and to the point where I was upside down in what the project that we were doing, and I had to stand up and go to him, and I was so nervous to do this and set that infinite that boundary. And I what I did, instead of just in that, there is an art to saying no, isn't there?
yes,
Because instead of going to him and saying, no, I'm not doing it, end of story, that's it, that creates animosity. Instead, I sat him down and I looked him in the eye and I said, listen, I said, here's the thing. We agreed on this. And I just laid it out logically and with compassion and empathy, and this is what we need to do. I cannot do it anymore because of this, and this is how it impacts me and my team. And coming at it that way, he was silent for a second and then he looked at me and he goes, I get it. I understand. So let's do this. And we came up with a plan that was, good for both of us. It was a win-win for both of us. So that was an example of a business or professional instance where I said no, and it turned into something very, very positive. But I think the key is, even in my personal life, and there's been instances in my personal life where I've had to say no, is learning that there is an art to saying no. And there is a compassionate, empathetic way of saying, you know what, I can't do this, and this is why.
yeah.
And so people understand. They're more likely to understand and work with you rather than against you.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree with you on the art of saying no. We can still say no, but if our intent is clear, I think the other person would be more, accepting of that and
Yeah,
understand where it is coming from,
right.
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. And I have used it in my workplace, in the corporate world, also in my personal life. And it has been good for me. And it has really helped me, like, in creating that boundary.
Mhm.
Because when you say yes, when your heart is really saying no, that's where, like, you talk about, like, your cup, like,
Yeah.
leaking. And so,
Right.
yeah, cool. All right. So let's see what else we have.
It's interesting because, I love what you just said. When you say yes, when you really mean no,
Yeah,
there's a point in my book where I talk about putting on that happy face every day.
yeah,
When you really are not happy in your heart, that fake happy, almost like a mask of a
yeah,
face. And in the book, I talk about that. There was a significant part of my life, or a segment of my life, where almost every day I woke up, put on my fake happy face, and off I went, right?
yeah,
And nobody knew what was
right,
going on in Shelley's heart. And every day you do that, a little part of you dies
right,
inside.
right.
And it's we just have to get past that for sure.
Yeah, and I think, like, many of you who are listening can relate to that, right? How many of us carry that perfect smile? And, you also spoke about perfection in your book. And, the whole world thinks you are having an awesome time, life, whatever scenario. But
Yes.
for all you have some conflict in your heart, right? And
Mhm.
that's where like the breaking point could come. So
Yes.
I definitely relate on that.
Right.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about inner strength, and you have addressed it beautifully, right? You said you're much stronger than you know. And I'm telling you, I can get a quote from every page of Shelley's book. Look at my
Oh,
notes.
I love
So
it.
yeah,
I love it. Thank you.
let's talk about inner strength, because I think again this is something many of us take it for granted.
I'm sorry, you
Inner
broke up.
strength,
What we take what for granted?
the inner strength we have.
Oh, the inner strength.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. I firmly believe that we all have inner strength that is huge, that we don't even realize, and many of us don't even tap into. And it really stands, and to get that inner strength and to express that inner strength, we have to first and foremost make sure our foundation that we stand on is solid, meaning we have to be secure in who we are. We have to set those boundaries. We have to learn to say no. We have to surround ourselves, our inner circle, our bubble, with people that are going to love us and support us. And once we have that solid foundation, we can stand up and put our chest to the sun and raise our arms up and really express that inner drive that we have. It's really important.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the reason why I brought up all this, there are lots, and I would definitely recommend our listener to order. And I do have one interesting announcement, at the end of our show. But every page, like I have a takeaway, and it resonates so much. It's almost like, okay, I thought about it, but you have laid it out so like articulately, like clear, right? So I'm like, wow, good. Yeah.
That's great. I'm so glad you loved it.
Yeah. So another question, and I know our conversation is going so well, but we are almost at 41 minutes.
Oh, boy, I'll tell you what, it
Yeah, and
went by so fast.
I want to ensure that I pick some of the questions I got from our listeners.
Uh-huh.
But before that, I want to talk, if you don't mind, about your how you coped up with your divorce, because I know that in our group there are many people who are struggling, right, being divorced, with the society's treatment, with their own family not accepting that choice,
Yes.
and all that judgment, and not nurturing their decision,
Yeah.
is really making them sad and not empowered. And when you spoke very shared with us about being divorced, and look at you, right? I mean, I can see you radiating with love and light, and I just want like all the women I know who comes and share with me about what they're going through. I
Yes.
know that they have the power within them to bounce back and smile like you. So if you
Right.
can share a little bit on that.
You know what? My divorce was part of the reason I was in that deep, dark moment in my life. And there at that time, and I will share with you very candidly, my ex-husband, I I wish him well, and he's the father of my children, and I do. But that time in my life, there was resistance in my heart. And when I was digging deep inside of myself and really doing the self work, I realized that my life's journey had been a straight line for a very long time. But now the resistance meant that I was meant to go off on a different path. And that path, I invited him to go on with me. And it was a different path, I think, than what he was used to, and he flat out did not want to do it. In fact, that was a source of conflict between the two of us. And there was a point where I realized that that path was what was true for me, that path was part of my boundaries. That path was part of saying no. It was my stability and my foundation for the most part. And I had there was a very difficult time in my life where I had to say, you know what, I have to be true to myself. I have to go on that path. That was a cord that I had to disconnect. And everybody out there, I mean, that's always a very personal, individual decision, but that was a cord that I had to disconnect and be a friend with him, and then be true to who I was. And I will not kid you, it was very, very difficult. It was a point in my life where I would take 2 steps forward and 10 steps back, and we kept going, back and forth. But now I can tell you that I would completely do it over again, because I am so much better in myself. My inner strength has blossomed, and what that is able to do, I'm so much better at who I am. I'm a better mother, I'm a better friend, I'm a better daughter, because of that. So even though it is really difficult, sometimes we have to do what we have to do.
Yeah,
And
to bring that alignment.
I'm sorry?
To bring that alignment, because had you just, stayed in that, then, you wouldn't be like happy. So
Right.
you knew that, and you, even though it was difficult,
Right.
you went through it. And so I think what I want to share to our listeners, who are going through that phase is, yeah, it's a growth phase. So there will be struggle, there will be pain points, but you are aligning yourself to what you truly want to be.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And, surrounding yourself with those people that love and support you, and really want to see the best for you.
Yeah.
It's really about personal growth.
Absolutely. All right. So let's move on to some of our questions. Okay. So I have a question from Haisnam Jogen Singh. Depression is problem, but nobody really knows why and how. So can you address a little bit about depression?
Yes, I can. And I want to be completely honest with all viewers out there. I'm a podiatrist. I'm not a psychologist, but I have been what I've been through. I have written this book. Depression is a really, really bad problem, and I like to. I liken it to when back when you were a child and you had a monster under your bed.
Yeah.
That's what depression is, because depression lurks in the shadows. And back, and thank you for asking that question, but back when I was in that deep, dark moment in my life, I was going through that, and I was spiraling down out of control, and I had that resistance in my heart. And I realize now, looking back, that I had that envelope of depression over me. In fact, people later told me, you were severely depressed. And I didn't realize it at the time, because it didn't feel like depression. All I knew is that I felt terrible, and I felt depressed, and I felt not motivated. And you know what? And sad. I mean, really, really sad. And what helped me, and I just encourage all of you out there, if you even question whether you're going in that route, is to seek somebody out to talk to. I have a wonderful, wonderful best friend who talked to me every single day when I was going through this. She was definitely in my bubble. And I also reached out for professional help as well. I was seeing a psychologist for a while, and I'm not ashamed to say that, because I needed help at the time. And it really, really, that in combination with my parents were wonderful. That helps to pull you out and pull you out of it. In the book, I talk about a well, falling in the well, right? That was very instrumental in pulling me out of that well.
Yeah. Thank you for that question. And I think it's all about having nurturing people around you, and going out and investing, seeking professional help, right, is not to be shameful about. I would definitely encourage. For me, I invested in myself. I went to seminars, I went for book writing, went for workshop, and look at that, like I learned painting. You see the
Oh, good. Did you paint
So,
those?
yeah, I did.
Oh, they're beautiful. I've been looking at that going, oh, I love those.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is like sometimes some people, they don't want to invest in themselves. And
Yes.
I would definitely say you are worth it, right?
Oh, yes.
You are so worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Invest in yourself, and you have to uplift yourself first so that
Yes.
you can grow to be I want to give your example because I see you in my screen and you're bubbling like with laughter and smile and so yeah, definitely.
Oh, thank you.
All right, so let me get to a couple more questions. I have a question from my bum Baneshwari. When I am doing my best to overcome the situation around, I sometimes feel so messy and don't understand if I'm doing the right thing or not. How do I overcome with this overwhelming emotions and situation?
You know what? When I hear that question is, I hear messy, and sometimes when we think of being messy, we think of it's not perfect. It's inadequate in some respect. And I'm going to say that for me, I went a large part of my life thinking everything, and that's a big section in the book, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yep.
I went a very significant part of my life thinking that I had to do everything just perfect, and working and striving towards that, and realizing at the end, after writing the book and reflecting on my grandmother's words, is that it is okay if our life is a little messy.
Yeah.
It is okay if things are not perfect, because I firmly believe that each and every one of us is imperfectly perfect. We're perfectly imperfect, because you know what, our imperfections and that struggle and that sometimes messy life is what makes us us. And if there's any words of advice that I could lend you, is that when we feel like we're not handling things messy, just take confidence in knowing that you're growing, because that's what it means. It means that you are growing, and that you will, right. That foundation I talked about, and I talk about in the book, is a solid foundation. When you feel like your life is messy and you're struggling just a little bit, you're trying to get your footing and your foundation. Your foundation is becoming solid, and you need to celebrate that. But just keep going. Keep going in the positive direction. Don't let yourself go down. Keep going up.
Yep. Keep going. Cut the cord. Keep going.
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like, there is a beautiful section about perfection, which Shelley has addressed. So definitely, we can get more details from there. But yeah, we don't have to be perfect all the time. It's fine. We don't have to.
Right. And society's definition of perfection is,
Yeah.
in my opinion, not attainable. And when we look outside and we look in nature, I mean, nature is perfectly imperfect.
Yeah.
You look at nature, there's dirt on the ground. There is, clouds in the sky that might be gray one day, but that is not imperfect, is it? No, it's actually perfect. It's part of a wonderful, wonderful, and you have your paintings behind you. I like to say it's part of a really magnificent painting with all its different components.
Yeah. And I love when you said, when you find yourself being messy, right, and kind of confusion and chaotic,
Yes.
you know that you're growing.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
I love that.
Yes.
I think I'm going to hold on to that.
Okay.
Moments like that. All right.
It's funny. I laugh at myself, because at the end of the day, I'll look back and go, "Oh my gosh, I didn't really know what I was doing when I did that," and I'll start giggling at the end of the day. Go, "Wow, did I grow today?"
Yeah. And we are always growing. We are always
Right.
learning. So that's awesome. Okay, so I'm going to pick up one more question. Tom Angom says, greetings to you both, Jay Monica. Jay means sister in my native language, and Dr. Plum. I have one question for Dr. Plum. Was there a time where in your coworker making fun of you that really hurt your sentiment? If yes, what was your reaction or response to them? And if not, what do you think is the best way to respond? So basically, like, you know, in a workplace, if people are making fun, and, you know, which you kind of
Yes.
get hurt.
Boy, I'll tell you what, that question really hits home for me, because I am, you know, you look where I came from, is I did foot and ankle surgery for 15 years, for quite a while, although I had production experience in the beginning. And I made the leap into video production, a full service production company. And there was so many people that said, you'll never do it. You will never make it. I mean, what do you think you're doing? This is crazy. And there was one person in particular who was condescending and very, very destructive in his comments. And he looked at me and he says, you know what? He says, not only will you never make it, but you will spiral down out of control. You know what? You have no idea what you're doing. So, you know what? That was a moment in my life. Another moment where I was like, okay, he's trying to break me. Okay, I have a choice right here and right now. I can let his comments take it to heart and really ingest those negative comments, let it fill my heart so nothing positive come in and spiral down out of control and give up. Or I can do this. I can take the comments, use the constructive part of it, and say, you know what, I'm going to do this. And you know what? It lit a fire under me. It lit, because it happened early in my production career, and I just took that, and well, I'll tell you what, we're showing them wrong. That is for sure. And that drive and that ambition actually came early for me. There was, when I had the idea to start my production company, I actually went to a lawyer, and a business lawyer. And I looked at him and I laid it all out on the table. I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. And this is here's my business plan. And he looked at me, he was very quiet, and he looked down at the paper and he looked at me, he goes, okay. He says, you know what? I see all of this. It all looks good. He says, I'm going to not kid you. This is not going to be easy, but I want you to promise me one thing, Shelley. And I looked at him and I'm like, okay, what is this one thing? He looked me straight in the eye and he says, promise me you will never give up. Despite what people say, people are going to come at you. They're going to try to defeat you out of their own insecurity. A lot of times that's where it comes from, but you can't ingest that. He says, you have to take that and let yourself soar. And I took that to heart. And I'll tell you what, even today, when people come at me, and there are negative comments that come at you, I don't let it defeat me.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. And for all the comments, look at this. Show them this book now.
Oh.
For the people who have told you you will not go anywhere. Look at that. Just say that. Talk to my book. I always say, I talk to my hand.
Talk to your hand. Talk to my book. I'm going to use that one, okay?
Yeah, please do. Yeah, it's awesome. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I see a lot of comments. Meena Longjam, great listening to this powerful and invigorating conversation. Santa KH, interesting. Definitely, I'll go through. Thanks, Dr. Shelley and Che Monica. Vaneshwari, this session is an eye-opener for me in various ways. I will definitely get the book. Laitong Bam Ibom Macha, watching from Sega Lambi from Imphal, Manipur. Jinglen Thoiba John, Jinga Kam, thank you, Gemma, for sharing our land video. Yeah, absolutely. This is one thing I love doing, and which I'm going to add on. And to all our listeners, keep creating and taking pictures of our beautiful place, because I'm going to look in YouTube, look in Instagram, and whichever is beautiful, I'm going to be featuring that in our People of the World series as an introduction of my native place. Suraj Maitai. So I'm going to read a comment in Maitai Lol, which is my native language. Shelley, so that you have a glimpse of our language too.
Sure.
Ije asumaina marak marakta yauhan birak u yamna nungaijay nanaw aikoi ije bu yamna thagachari. Thagachari means thank you, showing gratitude. It's about that he's appreciating our talk show on this topic of personal growth. So yeah, this is so awesome.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Yes.
And look at that. And the comment, how can we buy a copy of this book?
Oh, I would love it if you would buy a copy of the book and let me know what you think. Come back with any comments. And actually, there's a few ways that you can get the book. It definitely is on Amazon. There's a Kindle version, and then there's a paperback. So if you just go to Amazon.com and type into Break or Bounce, Dr. Shelley Plumb, it pops right up. For your viewers out there, Monica, if you would like a signed copy, you can email me at Shelley, Shelley, at plumtalkproductions.com. That's PLUMBTALK Productions with an S.com, and I will send you out a signed copy. You can purchase a signed copy, and for people who do that, I am so willing to give you 15% off, and we can do that. Just email me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to bring up your website just so that everybody knows where to go. This is the website of Dr. Shelley. And also, I was talking about that interesting news I wanted to share.
Oh, yes. Yes. Wait, you can enter to win a complimentary copy of the book just by signing up for our newsletter, and we raffle off one book a month. So I'd be happy if anybody wants to do that. We can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, there are a lot of content here. So, it's a great, great way for us to learn new things. And today is just a glimpse of, what little bit what we have picked up from the book, but there are tons and tons of things, and you don't have to be alone.
Yes.
I want all of you to be empowered, and you can do it and carry the smile and be aligned with what makes you happy. And I think that's the most important thing, right?
Absolutely. I 150% agree. That's what we're all in this together. You know what? We're all in this world together. And you know what? I love, especially with my children, to use an analogy of an ocean. And if we're all exhibiting behaviors of love and peace and compassion, one of us is going to be just a ripple in the ocean, right? But if we're all doing it, it's just a tidal wave of goodwill. And that is my vision for the future, for sure.
Yeah, the ripple. I love that ripple, and see how my ripple touched you, and how we are having this conversation. And I'm so happy to meet you today, Shelley.
So nice to meet you. Thank you for having me, and thank you to all the viewers out there.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm sure we will have future projects together. We will be in touch. Anything else you want to add before we say bye to everyone?
Oh, you know what? I just want to thank everyone out there for tuning in today. And thank you, Monica. This has been fabulous. And for all of you, or any of you out there that are in that deep, dark place of your life and you're not sure what your next step is, you know what? Just make sure that infamous cup is full. Really focus on that infamous cup and have it full, because what we don't want is, we don't want you to spiral down out of control, because you are worth it to bounce. And that's what we want for you.
Yeah, you're worth it. And right now, with the summer, I'm weeding out grasses, and there is no shame in weeding out grasses in our life too. So with that, I would end today's show. Thank you everyone for watching. And, if you find this show interesting, share it, right? Because there may be somebody who needs to hear what we spoke about today. So, all right. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Shelley.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Have a good weekend.